So after a couple of months off due to some unfortunate circumstances, specifically in November with the location that I filmed these videos that I'm not really going to get super into, we're back. It's good to be back, and it's good to be making videos for you guys yet again. And on that note, let's talk hockey. And on an even bigger note, let's talk Bruins hockey. Boston Bruins. And last night, the Boston Bruins ended the decade at home on a very strong note. I know they have one more game on the road to end the month, to end the year, to end the decade. They will play at New Jersey on New Year's Eve. But the Boston Bruins this year, for this season, the third best team in the NHL. In November, 9-2-3 record. In December, a little less, a little slack. 6-4-4, although that could go up by a game in either one of those categories. As I said, they have one game left at the New Jersey Devils on New Year's Eve. So those kind of time frames featured a end of November into December 8-game win streak for the Boston Bruins. Right around Thanksgiving time, they were the hardest team to beat in the NHL, but they also in December had a 5-game losing streak where it seemed like they just couldn't figure it out. And you're going to have those time frames. It's an 83-game season. You are not going to win all 83 games. It's physically impossible in this league. It's just the way it works. You're not going to lose all 83 games, and you're not going to win all 83 games. But it is always important to stash the points you can. We'll get into the December woes a little bit later in this video. So let's start with some positives. Specifically, the offense for the Boston Bruins, which has been doing really, really well. Featuring the two-headed monster by the name of David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand. David Pastrnak, the league leader in goals with 29, 13 of those on the power play, also leads the league in that category. He's tied for third in points officially with 58. The person he's tied for, we'll talk about right now, Brad Marchand. 39 assists on the season. That is tied for second in the NHL. Like I said, 58 points ties him for third. Brad Marchand just leading the team in assists, as well as only putting in 19 goals. Now, 19 goals for Brad Marchand, a little lower than you'd expect, but, I mean, the assists are there, the points are there. Both these two guys, of course, part of the perfection line, as it is subsequently known here in Boston. Let's talk about this power play. Third best power play in the league, as Boston has been doing really, really well on special teams. 26.7% on the power play. They're currently, as of the filming of this video, the second best penalty killing team at 84.8, but I believe they are a tenth of a point, or some variation thereof, like some little margin ahead of the third best team, who is like 84.7% or something along those lines. But top 10, top 5 in both those categories has been a huge impact on the Boston Bruins. As you'd expect, that power play, that top power play unit, Bergeron, Marchand, Pastrnak, DeBrusk, and Krug more often than not, although sometimes you throw in Danton Heinen in there as well. Maybe even what I'd like to see, especially on the second unit, which doesn't get as much time, maybe throw Anders Bjork on there for a little bit and develop him a little bit better. He's been doing really good. Let's also talk in something else that has been very much helping this Boston Bruins team, and that is your two-headed monster of a goalie tandem. Most teams are lucky if they have one good goalie. I'm talking about you, Toronto. You have one good goalie, Freddie Anderson, and you have, I don't know, that thing you used to tape up in front when you're playing, backyard hockey. Boston Bruins has technically, people, two number one goaltenders, which is something impressive. Let's talk about it. 16 games for Jaroslav Halak, the backup. He's 4th in the league in goals against average with a 2.22. He's 5th in save percentage with a 928, that is. And tied for 1st in the league in shutouts. 3 shutouts for Jaroslav Halak. 9 wins on the season in 16 games. On the other side, the starter, Tuukka Rask, 24 games played this year. Great split, by the way, if I can mention that. 24-16. I like the split. It's about 60-40, give or take. Maybe even 55-45 or some variation thereof. I'm not going to do the math. But Tuukka Rask, 7th in the league in goals against average with a 2.31, 9th in save percentage with a .923, tied for 5th in shutouts with 2. So the 2 goaltenders combined 5 shutouts this season alone, and he's tied for 9th in wins with 15. This goaltending tandem, like I said, you have 2 top 10 goaltenders currently going in a wide variety of statistics. Most teams are begging for one. That is amazing. And that is a huge aspect of the Boston Bruins' success, is that night in, night out, it could be Yarrow, it could be Tuukka, you expect just very, very good goaltending every night. And you are getting the results you want, and it doesn't matter who's in net. And that is a huge, huge reassurance for the Boston Bruins. And hopefully something that'll continue going into 2020. So let's take a look at some concerns and some issues that we have. We talked a lot of good already. But let's... one of the big issues with this Boston Bruins team, and it's been an issue for most of last year, most of last season at least, and also, we talked about it earlier in the season. Is this a one-line team? Well, let's take another deep dive. We've done a deep dive on this earlier in the year. Let's take another one real quick. So the top line, Bergeron, Pastrnak, and Marchand, versus the rest of the team. We're going to go with goals, assists, and points, of course, as naturally you would. So for that top line pair, 65 goals scored this season, 29 from Pastrnak, 19 Marchand, 17 from Bergeron. The rest of the team, though, has really stepped up in the last couple of months, as they now have 71 goals on the season. That's the rest of the team. 11 from Jake DeBrusk. So only 4 Boston Bruins have goals in double digits. That's a little issue. 5 players who have played this season have no goals on the year. Here's the interesting factor. We go to assists, and the top line has 86 assists. The rest of the team, 143. But assists are the kind of easier statistic. Interesting to note, Patrice Bergeron is 5th on the team in assists. As Brad Marchand leads the way with 39. Pastrnak, 29 assists this year. Torrey Krug with 21. David Krejci with 20. And then 5th, Patrice Bergeron, only 18 assists this season. So if you add everything up, we go to points. 151 points for the top line already on the year. The rest of the team has 214 points. So I think it's safe to say that this team is steering in the right direction. 7 players on the year over 20 points already in 40 games. So that's a pretty good thing we're going. Like I said, Brad Marchand and David Pastrnak tied with 58. 35 for Patrice Bergeron. 28, I believe that's David Krejci, with 26 for Torrey Krug, 20 for Jake DeBrusk, and 20 for Charlie Coyle. So I like it. 7 players over 20 points. And definitely the rest of the team is starting to show up. Third line, fourth line. You don't expect them to score all that much, but it would be nice if they do. And we always have to talk about the 42-year-old elephant in the room. His name being Zdeno Chara. Your captain, my captain. And on this season, he is averaging for time on ice, second highest on the team at 21 minutes, 14 seconds of on-ice time per game. Are we okay with that? I'm not. I think 21-14 is about 2-3 minutes too high for Zdeno Chara, specifically as we are approaching a very, very busy February and March. Both those months very heavily game dense. So, I don't know, maybe in January where we're not as game heavy, you do have that nice week off in that month. Maybe scale it back a little bit. Do we want to give Zdeno Chara some games off? Maybe towards the end of the year. You got a 42-year-old defenseman, and at some point, Father Time will catch up to Zdeno Chara. It's going to happen. So, I don't know. Do you balance this? Do you give him time off? Do you scale back his minutes? Do you give more minutes to Brendan Carlo? And kind of put that together. But the issue with that, of course, Brendan Carlo is also a right-handed shot, as is Charlie McAvoy. Do you move up John Moore? Can you trust Matty Grzelcyk on the top line? If you scale back Zdeno Chara, do you move Torrey Krug up? But he has his defensive issues. It is very much a catch-22 with this Boston Bruins defense. As on the left-hand side, arguably, you don't have a solid stay-at-home defensive defenseman. You have a lot of good options for offensive defensemen. So that is something to look into going forward. Now we go to what I think is the biggest issue for the Boston Bruins this year, or at least so far this year, and that is overtime and the shootout. Boston, this year, in this season alone, leads the NHL in overtime and shootout losses with 9. They are 2-11 in games past regulation, and they have yet to win the skills competition, the shootout. They are 0-5. What is the issue here? Is the issue a lack of skill? Overthinking things? Not executing well in the 3-on-3? Are we, making stupid line decisions? Are we making, bad line changes? Is it just puck luck? There's got to be something there that's not catching on. Do we need to change the lines? And with that comes into question Bruce Cassidy. Is coaching an issue in the 3-on-3 as well as the shootout? We've seen a lot of Sean Corrali in 3-on-3 play, which is arguably maybe not his strong suit, as he's more of a bruiser kind of player, although he does have a good amount of assists this year. Should we see more Charlie Coyle, David Krejci, Charlie Coyle, and Patrice Bergeron as your 3 centermen that you use in the 3-on-3, more so than Sean Corrali, but a lot of that came into play with the injuries to Patrice Bergeron that we saw. Also, one big question, and we saw this a couple times as well, Chris Wagner. Can we stop using Chris Wagner in the shootout? I saw him a couple times. It didn't work. I don't know if you were just being too cute. If you wanted to just give him a shot. Did he look good in practice? I don't know. It didn't work. It was a waste of a shootout spot. You shootout guys to start should be David Pastrnak. I know his overall statistics hasn't been good, but against the New York Islanders, he just literally undressed Robin Lehner. So Pastrnak, Brad Marchand, Torrey Krug, Charlie McAvoy, and David Krejci or Patrice Bergeron. Those should be your 5 players that start every shootout. some variation of the 3 to start, and if that, you use those 3 and you lose in a shootout, I'm okay with it, because you put your 3 best scorers or some variation of your 3 best scorers out there in the shootout. So one other thing I'd like to note, and we touched on it earlier, December was a bit of an issue. 8 losses for the Boston Bruins in the month of December. 5 of those to teams that finished in the playoffs last year, and or teams that are currently in the playoffs this year. And those 5, Colorado, the New York Islanders, Washington, your kryptonite Washington, Tampa Bay, and Smashville. Tampa and Smashville currently not in the playoffs, but they were in the playoffs last year. Nashville, I believe, is closing in on a playoff spot, and I know Tampa Bay is about 4 points out of a wild card spot. Washington, the best team in the league, with the New York Islanders in 4th and Colorado in 6th. You have lost twice to Colorado. Washington, we all know the Washington issues, although you creamed them 7-3 earlier this year. And the New York Islanders are a tough game. They're a tough team, very good defensive. But should we be concerned that the Boston Bruins are struggling against top talent, like Colorado, like the New York Islanders, like Washington? Because those are teams, specifically the Islanders, specifically Washington. You will face those teams, potentially, 1 or 2 of those teams in the playoffs. Especially, depending on how far you get and what the overall tier looks like. And if you get far enough, Colorado is looking very good to make it to the Stanley Cup. But that is a long way away. But that is something to kind of consider. Overall, though, 2019 has been a fantastic year for the Boston Bruins, minus 1 bad Brad Marchand line change that we refuse to mention anymore. So here's to hoping the 2020 is as good of a year for Boston, maybe even better. Maybe we hoist that thing this year. That'd be wonderful. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving, a good Christmas, a good holiday season. Have a good New Year, and be on the lookout New Year's Eve as I give you all my Boston Bruins all-decade team. That'll be coming, like I said, sometime New Year's Eve. So in the comments below, leave me your suggestions. Who should be on the Boston Bruins all-decade team? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell and all that fun stuff. And I will see you then. All-decade team video coming out very, very soon. And I'll see you on the next Bruins Recap Show.